There's a shift happening right now that most people don't even notice because it isn't loud, it isn't broadcasted, and it isn't being celebrated in any mainstream conversation. It's happening quietly, almost invisibly, in the lives of men everywhere. Men are beginning to walk away. Not in rebellion, not in anger, and not even in bitterness, but in clarity. For years, men have been told they weren't enough. They were told to provide more, to love harder, to open up, to communicate, to give more patience, to give more forgiveness, and to give more of themselves. They were told that if they just tried harder, the reward would be love, loyalty, and respect. But what they found instead was the opposite. They gave and gave, only to receive less in return. Less appreciation, less intimacy, less respect. At some point, a man stops blaming himself and begins to see the truth for what it is. He looks back on the years he's spent pouring himself into someone else, and the return is shockingly small. He realizes the problem was never that he wasn't giving enough. The problem is that he was giving into a system designed to take without giving back. Society raised him to believe that his worth was tied to how well he could attract, keep, and please a woman. Every movie, every love song, every advertisement reinforced the same message: a man without a woman is incomplete. So he grew up chasing validation, chasing acceptance, chasing love. But something inside him eventually breaks, not in rage, but in awareness. He sees modern relationships for what they have become, not about family, not about building something that lasts, but about leverage, options, and constant validation. And once he sees it, he can't unsee it. That's when he stops playing the game entirely. When a man finally makes the decision to walk away, it rarely comes with noise. There are no dramatic speeches, no social media announcements, no attempts to prove a point. He simply disappears. He stops chasing, stops bending, stops compromising his values to keep someone else comfortable. The exit is quiet because it isn't about proving anything, it's about reclaiming what was always his. Men who walk away don't slam doors, they simply stop showing up to the places where they feel unseen. And that silence is often more powerful than any declaration. The shift is noticeable first in his actions. He no longer rearranges his schedule to accommodate someone who doesn't truly value him. He no longer spends his money trying to impress or his energy trying to keep peace in a relationship that only rewards him with stress. Instead, he turns that same effort inward. The money he once spent on dates or gifts now funds his goals. The time he once wasted on endless arguments is now spent building his body, his business, his craft. He starts traveling, exploring, and mastering new skills, not to win anyone over, but to enrich his own life. The irony is that once he stops caring about attracting women, he becomes more magnetic than ever. His discipline, his focus, and his calm presence make him stand out in a world full of men desperate for validation. But by that time, he doesn't need what's being offered. The game no longer appeals to him. Meanwhile, women often don't notice the shift until it's well underway. For years, they were told men would always chase, always commit, always provide, no matter how poorly they behaved. But when the constant validation dries up, when attention begins to vanish, reality hits. His silence isn't punishment, it's preservation. A man's absence has a weight that is often heavier than his presence ever was. At first, when he leaves, she may feel a sense of relief or even empowerment. She may believe she still holds control, that his withdrawal is temporary, that he will eventually come back like he always did. But as the days stretch into weeks and the weeks slip into months, reality begins to settle in. The quiet no longer feels like freedom. It feels like a void. The bills that once seemed effortless to cover suddenly feel heavier. The little daily problems that used to disappear without her even noticing begin to pile up. The calm and stability he brought into the home are no longer there, replaced instead by a constant, low hum of unease. It is only then that she realizes how much of the balance in her life was silently maintained by him. But for the man, this realization comes too late to matter. By the time she feels the absence, he has already rebuilt. He has created new routines that fill his days with purpose. He has deepened his friendships, invested in his passions, and discovered sides of himself that were hidden beneath years of emotional exhaustion. He no longer lives in the shadow of someone else's moods or demands. Instead, he wakes up to a life that feels lighter, freer, and truly his own. The most painful part for her is that what she once dismissed as ordinary was, in fact, rare. His consistency, his stability, his quiet presence, all the things she barely acknowledged, are qualities she now struggles to replace. But for him, the shift is permanent. Once a man experiences the peace of living without constant emotional negotiations, he refuses to trade that peace for anything. What truly separates the man who walks away from the man who stays is not anger, but detachment. Anger still ties you to the situation. Anger can be manipulated, provoked, and used against you. But detachment is different. Detachment is final. It is a calm recognition that you owe no more explanations, no more justifications, no more energy to someone who never valued it in the first place. When a man reaches that point, something in his presence shifts. He speaks less, but the words he does say carry more weight. He no longer feels the need to defend himself or persuade someone to see his worth. He simply knows it, and that knowledge is unshakable. This detachment is what makes a man unmovable in a world that constantly tries to pull at his emotions. Women often test for this strength without realizing it. They push, they prod, they create conflict, waiting to see if he will crumble and beg for their approval. Many men do. But the man who is detached no longer plays into the game. He won't beg, he won't argue, he won't sacrifice his peace for temporary validation. He understands that attention is not loyalty, and affection is not love if it has to be earned through endless proving. Ironically, it is this very detachment that makes him magnetic. People notice it. In a culture where everyone is desperate to be seen and validated, the man who needs none of it becomes rare, almost untouchable. Women may find themselves chasing him harder than ever, but he is no longer swayed by beauty or empty promises. His standards rise to match the value he has built within himself. He is not cold, he is simply free. And once he reaches that space, there is no pulling him back. What's happening now isn't a wave of bitterness, but a cultural awakening. Men are no longer ashamed to choose themselves first. For generations, they were told their value was measured by how much they could sacrifice for family, for stability, for love. They were expected to give endlessly, with the promise that loyalty and respect would come in return. But as more men saw how quickly loyalty could vanish and how easily respect could be withdrawn, they began to realize the bargain no longer existed. And without that bargain, there is no reason to keep playing the part. Instead, men are turning their energy inward. They are building their bodies, their finances, their skills, and their inner peace. They are learning that solitude is not emptiness, but freedom. Alone, they discover clarity. They wake up without drama, without emotional games, without the weight of constant negotiation. Their time is their own, their energy belongs to their ambitions, and their self-worth is no longer chained to someone else's approval. That shift changes everything. Ironically, the moment a man no longer needs validation, his value skyrockets. The quality of women who notice him rises, not because he's trying to impress, but because his life now speaks for itself. Yet by then, he doesn't need what's being offered. He has raised his standards to match the man he has become. His peace, his discipline, his independence, these are treasures he won't gamble away for fleeting attention. This is the paradox: the less a man chases, the more magnetic he becomes. But the men who reach this level no longer care to be caught. They've learned the greatest revenge isn't replacing someone, but replacing the version of themselves who once tolerated less. They don't just move on, they evolve, and in doing so, they change the game entirely.